Three young Palestinians have been shot and killed in separate stabbing incidents in Jerusalem and on the West Bank. Tensions remain high in the region after more than 2 weeks of daily violence. Our Middle East correspondent Shireen Tadros now reports.
Young, angry and frustrated. Palestinians face off with Israeli forces. They use slingshots to fire rocks towards them. But it barely makes a difference to soldiers dressed in full riot gear. They respond by firing rubber-coated steel bullets back. It's a scenario that's become so common, it's barely reported anymore. The Palestinians here say it's the only way to resist an occupation that affects every part of their daily lives. Recent weeks have seen a wave of these clashes and random attacks, mostly young Palestinians not affiliated to any political group stabbing Israeli officers. In Hebron, an Israeli settler shot a Palestinian man he says was trying to stab him. Locals say it was an unprovoked attack. In Jerusalem, another teenage Palestinian was shot dead after trying to stab an officer. These Palestinian students at Birzeit University in the West Bank think this isn't part of another intifada or uprising. It's what happens when you live under occupation and lose all hope that anything will ever change.
We're breathing occupation. I mean, in our daily life, you can see the occupation in each corner.
How do you explain a 13-year-old child deciding to go and stab a 15-year-old Israeli child?
Children are very easily influenced, and a child, ever since he's been little and hearing all these negative things and seeing all these negative things, he's going to react in a way where it's hard for them to control their emotions. So when they're used to seeing these stabbings and they believe in being sort of nationalist, they are going to act in that way.
Many said they also feel let down by a Palestinian leadership that's remained silent and allowed for the occupation to continue. There's a real sense of hopelessness here, an intractable conflict that will continue to explode in violent waves as long as nothing changes. Shireen Tadros, Sky News, the occupied West Bank.
Pro-Palestinian activists also gathered at a protest in London earlier this afternoon. Close to 1,000 people demonstrated outside the Israeli embassy as part of an event organised on Facebook, many of them campaigning for an end to what they call the brutal Israeli occupation.
Why are we seeing, at the moment, in your opinion, this uptick of violence? Why now?
Why now? Well, first of all, there's the ongoing occupation. But secondly, Prime Minister Netanyahu...
That's been going on for decades.
Prime Minister Netanyahu decided to go on an adventure. He decided he was going to take Al-Aqsa Mosque from Muslims, divide it, to allow Jews to pray there, which is something that goes against all the previous agreements. It is a Muslim holy site. I respect the fact that Jews have some connection to it, but what they want to do is to take it, demolish it, and build a third temple, and the Palestinians will not stand for that.
And our Middle East correspondent Shireen Tadros sent us this update from East Jerusalem.
There are some distinct differences between what we saw in 1987 and 2000 to what we're seeing today across the Palestinian territories. One of those differences is in 1987 and 2000, just after there was an instigation, there were within days a wave of protests across the Palestinian territories, nothing like what we're seeing right now. What we're seeing now, like you were looking at in that report, are pretty localized and really in the grand scheme of things, not very big protests. The second, I think, main difference is that the attacks by Palestinians on Israelis are being carried out by what they're calling lone wolf attackers. So these are young Palestinians who are not affiliated to any political group or any political party. In fact, one of them said on their Facebook page before carrying out an attack that they don't want any political party to make political capital out of the death or claim it. They want nothing to do with them. And so there's a lot of disillusionment there. I think a lot of feeling that the Palestinian leadership have let them down, and that's why they feel that there is nothing that they have to live for, nothing else that they can do, really. And there's a real desperation there. But in many ways, this kind of violence is exactly what we've been seeing over the past decade, just a different element, if you like, a different element to the same story, whether it's stabbing attacks or attacks by cars, tractors and so on. And a lot of people will say that as long as an occupation continues, we will see these waves of violence, unfortunately, across the Palestinian territories and beyond.
Shireen Tadros there.